one day it just all clicked. I'm like, my job is getting in the way of me doing the thing that I love. This has got to change.
Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. The House of JerMar is a lifestyle brand empowering women to live all in interior design and personal wellness. We are a destination for women ready to reimagine what is possible in their homes and lives and then create it. We are honored to have you join us on our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. I am your host, Jen Collins, and I invite you to become inspired by this week's guest. Welcome to the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. I'm your host, Jen Collins, and this week's guest is really inspiring. This is Jennifer Johnson, also known as Jen. She's a women's empowerment coach, and she is here to fuel the fire within women. And she has so much to talk about how she got into this business, how she helps women find their purpose, and she focuses on successful executives that have everything you would think they want, but yet something is missing. So I am so excited to talk to Jen. So Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I want to take you everywhere with me now to do that introduction.
well, in fairness, I was reading your website and I have your bio, of course, and I was reading your website and I was like, ooh, you got some really good quotes in here. Like there's some really good like one-liners in there. So I don't like to read it. I feel like it'll come out in our discussion. But you know, when you really talk about like fueling your passion, and you talk on your website, which we'll talk more about, you know, being able to say to yourself a year after you start coaching, like, wow, if I had ever known that was possible, and look at where I am now, which I think is a testament to the power of coaching. So before we talk about your actual business and what you do and how you help women, I want to know a little bit more about you, because one of the purposes of this podcast is to help inspire women through the stories of other women and other women's journeys, because most of us didn't start where we are today. And the path that it took for us to get to where we are today was not linear. And there were lots of ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And I think just our journeys alone help inspire other women about what is possible by learning how you got to where you are. So give us a little background about you and your career path, because you didn't start out in coaching.
No, I definitely didn't start out in coaching. And you are right about that. The path is not linear. Oh goodness. It sometimes feels like when you see a woman having a baby and they're reading the contractions, the ups and downs, and then the real high highs, and then they come back down, then the real low lows. That's what it's like. My journey has been like a contraction. I'm so happy I just put that together. Oh, yeah. So just a little bit about where I am today. You know, like you said, I am a women's coach. I am also a mom. I have an amazing 10-year-old son who is all about soccer. Everything in life is soccer right now. I actually had to follow Cristiano Ronaldo on Instagram just so I could keep up with him, so that like I could keep up with my son. Not a bad follow. And I also have an amazing husband. We are coming up on our second anniversary. So found my true love late in life, which is part of my story. Yeah. So I really think that for me, I almost feel like the first 30 years were just a blur. You know, I can look back over my childhood and my teenage years and my young 20s, and of course there's moments that stand out. That period in my life was just surviving. It was working a job to pay my bills. It was, you know, I spent a long time in the bar and restaurant industry. I was in retail. I was so unfulfilled just in life. I won't even say it was my career. I would say that it was my life. I'd previously been married, and I won't say anything bad about him. He is a wonderful man. We just weren't wonderful for each other. It was the broken parts of both of us trying to come together in a relationship. and I feel like that was those, you know, the bulk of, I would say my 20s and 30s, it was just like brokenness in survival mode. And I know that might sound like really sad, but I don't know. I'm like, maybe I'm noticing I'm judging myself a little bit right now. But I'm so grateful for it because every single one of those days brought me to where I am today. And so like I said, my son is 10. So I really think a lot of my journey began when I had him. And so, I get a little bit pinged when women are like, my children are my life. And I'm like, oh, yes, they are. But also, like, your life, it's your life.
Yeah.
Like, they can bring you life, they can bring joy to your life. But for me, he really came into this world, and the idea of like having this beautiful life all of the sudden existed because I had this little human being. And so I would love to say that it came that easily, and it didn't. It was a little while after that. But I had this little boy, and I was a single parent. And I remember the day that I left the hospital with him, because they had kept me for a little while because we had some complications, just a few days. And I was leaving, and I'm sitting in the wheelchair, as they roll you out after you have a baby. And I'm holding this baby, and I'm like, they're just going to let me leave with him?
I said the same thing. Like, really?
What am I going to do?
What do I do now? What do I do now?
What do I do? Because for the last 3 days, people have been reminding me to take my medicines. They've been bringing me my food. They've been helping me go to the bathroom and get in the shower. And they've been helping me take care of this baby. And I'm like, now I have to do it by myself. Oh my goodness. That was such a vivid thought of mine. But anyways, so I had this little human being, and it was like all of the sudden I knew that there was something more than what I had been doing. And so I did leave the bar and restaurant industry because I knew that just wasn't going to work for, being a single parent raising a young child. And I took a position. I'll just say I took a position with Costco Wholesale. Who doesn't love Costco?
Everyone loves
So I
Costco.
took a part-time position with them just to work and bring a little bit of money in while I figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And in that time, I was really lucky that I moved up very quickly with the company. They're great about promoting and hiring from within. So within just a couple of years, I had worked into a marketing position, a sales and marketing position with Costco. So for a girl in her 30s with no college degree and really no marketable skills other than waiting tables and slinging drinks, it was a pretty great opportunity for me. I had the PTO, I had the 401k, I had the vacation time, I had everything. Like my benefits, my insurance. Oh my gosh, I had such amazing insurance. That was really hard to leave
And there's
behind.
a value. Once you leave and become an entrepreneur, you realize, wow, that is a lot of value, especially now the cost of insurance is so high.
Yeah.
But it's a real job. Yeah. Like, you had a real job with real benefits. You were an adult.
100%.
You were an adult.
Yeah. And I was going to retire with them. I mean, I knew that I was going to retire with them because they're a great company to work for.
Yes.
So after the newness kind of wore off a little bit, I started just being like, oh, gosh, this feels like real tiring. It's like when you're giving yourself to something that you don't really love, it can be a little exhausting. And you can really be run down at the end of the day. And at the time, I was involved with a local for-profit here in Columbus, Ohio, and their focus is leadership and emotional intelligence. And one of the great things about this program is after you are a graduate of it, you can come back and coach it. And so I had completed this program also in this time, and I had come back and I was coaching this program. And so what I noticed was at this job that I thought I was going to retire from, I was using all my PTO, all my vacation time. I was taking unpaid days, unpaid hours just to shorten my work days and my work weeks. And I was dedicating all of that time to this volunteer coaching position because I loved it so much. And so, like, one day it just all clicked. I'm like, my job is getting in the way of me doing the thing that I love. This has got to change. And again, I wish it would have happened a little bit quicker than it did. It did take a little bit more time than that. But, for me, I had this fear about going back to college because right out of high school, I went straight into the workforce because I struggled. And I was so afraid to go back to college. And I remember sitting with a friend of mine, and I finally just got really honest with her. And I said, I really want to go get my college degree, but I don't think I'm smart enough to go back to college. And it was like, this weight just fell off of me. And it's like I released that limiting belief that was really holding me down. It was like in that moment, I let it go because it's not true.
Of course not.
And just that freedom and letting it go, releasing that weight, I was in almost immediate action. So within weeks of that moment, I had literally one day, drove down to the community college, registered for all my classes, did my financial aid, got everything all squared away, drove to work the very next day and put in my notice.
I love it.
And I had no idea what I was going to do. My field was social work. And I didn't know why. I just know in social work, you get to help people. And I know I really want to help people.
Okay.
So that was what my degree was going to be in. And so I registered for classes the next day. I stepped down from my position, which was a hugely coveted position. And I stepped down to a stocker position. I worked 25 hours a week, stocking shelves at Costco, and went back to school to get my college degree as a single mom at 40 years old, right before June of 2020. I'm sorry, January of 2020.
Right before our friend's COVID arrived.
Right before COVID arrived.
Amazing. Let me just stop you for 1 second. That takes so much courage. Like, where do you think you got the courage from to do that? Because most people don't just say, oh yeah, okay, I'm a single parent and I'm quitting this and I'm going to start this new school thing and it's going to cost money and I'm investing and I'm making this huge drastic pivot in life. Where did you find the courage to do that and not be afraid of what everybody else thought of you?
Yeah. Oh, because boy, did people have opinions.
I'm sure they did. A lot of people are like, you're crazy. Irresponsible is what I could hear, like the parents.
Yes.
Like I can hear the relatives saying that's irresponsible.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And it's like we see these athletes on TV, right? And they thank their mom who sacrificed everything and worked the 3 jobs to make it happen for the kid, right? And of course we do. Of course we're going to do what we need to do for our kids. But where's the accolade for like doing whatever you have to do to live your life? Like where's that at? And so I'm like, I want, when my son's a super soccer star and he's winning the MLS Cup, I want him to stand on that stage and be like, and I'm so proud of my mom because she never stopped choosing her life while providing me mine. Like how powerful would that be?
So powerful because you found the balance. You didn't have to choose. It wasn't, I'm going to be a mother and not have me at the same time, which I think is a lot of times what people choose is that path. And it's not to say that's the bad path, but for a lot of women, we want more than just that mother because you can't just be defined by that.
Right. Absolutely. And to answer your question, because I know I kind of went off on a little tangent there. I've never had a time in my life where I've just known so deep in my core that this was what I was supposed to do. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I didn't know how the bills were going to get paid. But I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. I knew that this was my next step. It was this deep inner knowing. And, for me, it's my faith. So for me, it was like a very clear, like word from God. This is what's next for you. This is where you're going. This is how you're going to serve me. And I followed it.
Which is amazing. Okay. So you start going to school and you're working, stocking shelves at Costco because you have to make some money. And then what happens? Because there's another twist, I think, in here from what I remember.
I feel like there's a couple in here. So my first time back in college back in school in 20 plus years, I went spring semester of 2020. So we know what happened then, the COVID lockdown. So halfway through my first semester back, we went totally virtual, which that was a foreign concept to me. I mean, I graduated in 1997. Like people didn't even have computers in their households then, right? Like some did,
Right.
but most didn't. I have to say, I've never been so proud of myself because my first semester back in school, after 20 plus years in the middle of a COVID lockdown, and I still poured out a 4.0 GPA. And I was so proud of myself for doing that.
Good for you.
And yeah, thanks. And the next, I don't know, it's kind of like, chugging along with school from there, right? But just in that time, a lot kind of changed in my life. The two biggest things was one, I met my husband because we were both supporting that for-profit leadership organization. He was actually living in Colorado at the time, and I was living here in Columbus, and they were doing these leadership programs. They transitioned to online as well, like so many other organizations did. And we met coaching this at the same time. So, people are always like, did you guys meet online? We're like, well, kind of. So yeah, the COVID lockdown brought us together, and we spent the first couple months just courting each other over Zoom and Facebook Messenger and just getting to know each other. And then he flew out here to visit me and never left.
I love it.
And here we are, happily married.
Well, and you met, which is what they say. I mean, I've been single for like forever. I'm not at the moment, but right now I'm not, and hopefully never will be again. But I was single for such a long time. And people always say the best way to meet someone is by doing something you're passionate about, because you will then find a like-minded person. And that's exactly, you're living proof of it, because you were doing something you were passionate about. He was doing something he was passionate about. And that immediately helps with your connection right there.
Absolutely. And he also is a coach. And so we just both we're able to support each other in a way and encourage each other in a way, because we've been on that journey. We've been on that path. We've experienced the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs. And so being able to have that in common, and to your point, the things that we're passionate about and the things that we care about has really just been a gift. It really has been a gift. And I truly think that it was so when he came here, watching him in his career, that really inspired me to just double down on coaching, because I've kind of been dabbling in it, doing a little group program here or there, but I hadn't gone like full scale with it.
Right.
And gosh, that's been, I think, about 3 years now. I said, okay, no more Costco. We're going all in here.
Love it.
And so I left that job altogether, went all in on my coaching business, and I'd like to say I haven't looked back. Entrepreneurship is the greatest personal development program or personal development opportunity you'll ever have. It gives you time, day after day, time after time. You get opportunities to grow and learn and push yourself and crush your limiting beliefs and inspire yourself and convince yourself and pour into yourself like nothing other.
Very true. Yes. It is a creative outlet unlike any other.
Mm-hmm.
But it allows, I have found that it also opens so many incredible doors that you could never even think existed had you not walked down that path.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you coach all the time. How did you find your niche in coaching?
That's so funny, because I worked with a business coach, and she kept asking me, like, who do you want to work with? Who's your niche? And she would ask me all these questions to help pull it out of me. And it was like stuck in me. I could not figure it out. And then one day I was literally just sitting here, and I was like looking over my notes from my clients and kind of reflecting on our calls. And I'm like, oh, I discovered my niche by taking a look at who was attracted to me, like who was drawn to me.
Yes.
And gosh, I wish that could happen for everybody. Because I spent so long being the single parent that everybody was telling me, you should serve single moms. You should serve single moms. And of course, I have done coaching programs, one-on-one coaching with single moms. I definitely am passionate about serving single moms, but I'm like, that's not my niche. And it was noticing the women who were attracted to me, these really powerful women who had the careers that they thought they would retire from. Maybe they had the family and maybe they didn't. Either way, they were, fine. But on paper, they had everything that you could want, but they were really unfulfilled, really complacent. I think complacent is the best word. And those are the women that I started calling forward. And I'm like, oh, they're me. They were me. They were the person that I was back then.
Right.
And one of my clients said to me, she's like, you're the after.
Yes.
And she knew me at the before. And she was like, I'm hiring you because you're the after. You are what I want to be after. That's what I want to have. It's what I want to do.
Yes.
And so that's really how I called my clients in.
Yes. Well, and they always say when they talk about, trying to find your target audience. And I was similar to you when I started my interior design business. I was like, I'll design for anyone who has money. And my career coach was like, no, that's not going to work. And even when I launched my lifestyle brand last month, it was, really having to hone in on who do I want to serve and who am I trying to connect with and resonate with? And it's very difficult. But I have heard many times people say your best customer will be someone that you were, because you can relate to them and they know, especially when you're in the coaching, life help business, they know that you understand their pain points and that you understand them innately, which is very difficult because I was that woman also. And it's very difficult to allow yourself to be vulnerable and honest. Like on paper, I have everything, but I'm really not very happy is what it really comes down to in its most simplistic form. And it's very hard to admit that to someone, but I can see how there could be a huge comfort in admitting it to someone who can understand and isn't going to judge you for that at all.
I think back to that day of saying to that friend of mine, like, I don't think I'm smart enough to go back to college.
Yeah.
Like having that person there for me to just let me say that thing. Because most people in my life would have like hurried to like, no, you're okay. You can do it. Like brush those feelings aside. But she just really let me sit with the impact of the weight of my words.
Right.
And I love that I get to do that. It's like taking what I've received and just giving it back and giving it back. And that's what I get to do with my clients.
Oh, which is so wonderful. Wow.
It really is.
Yeah. So on your website, I noticed, I want to talk about this just a little bit. You talk about one-on-one coaching. You talk about group coaching. You talk about like classwork that you do. I'm sure you'll say you love all of it, but if there's one part of it that you enjoy the most, what is it and why?
You're right. I love it all for so many different reasons. And I really think it's the one-on-one coaching, because with my one-on-one clients, we get to start at point A. And I have all of my partnerships are 6 months to a year. And so starting at point A and then ending, at point Z, all of the spots in between, watching that is so rewarding. I mean, I just got goosebumps. It's so life-giving. It's so inspiring. And quite frankly, like it's exciting for me to know that I just, got to be a part of it, right? Like it's not like, oh, it's my coaching that made the difference, right? Like I'm just in the vehicle with them. I am on the journey with them. I'm just sharing my observations. I'm asking them the questions because they have all of the answers inside of them. Sometimes it's just tucked away and maybe we don't have access to it. But if we just have somebody to help us out, to hold a mirror up to us, to shine a light on our blind spots, we're like, oh, there it is. Okay, this explains a lot. Now I can move forward from here. And just to be able to see, it's like the before and after reveal. It's just so exciting. And one of the things that I love to do with my clients is at the end of our partnership, I'll pull out the notes from our very first call and reflect back to them the things that they were saying or that they wanted or that they were, forecasting as a goal, or maybe it changed altogether. And just to watch them be so proud of themselves.
Of course.
Well, we don't say that very often. that we're proud of ourselves.
No.
But to watch that in somebody and then be able to reflect it back to them is just really special.
That is. Well, and you said something also that's really important. I think you talked about your clients have a 6 to 12 month partnership with you. And I think we are so much in a society of people want a quick fix. They want to take Ozempic to lose weight and they want to just read a book and it's going to tell them what to do. And they'll just do those 10 steps. And then all of a sudden, magically, their life will change. And I think it's so important that you're demonstrating that this is deep work. It's heavy work and people have to be committed to the work, but it does work. It pays off. It does work. You can get change and you can get to where you want to get, but it is a process and it's a journey and your clients had to be committed to that process and journey, but it does work.
Yeah, 100%. I actually won't work with clients for anything less than 6 months because it feels also very irresponsible.
Yeah.
It feels very irresponsible because it's usually around the 3-month mark that they finally are like, okay, now it's all out, right?
Now
like
what?
all this, yeah. And so now let's go.
Right.
Now it's time.
Right.
And so to not be with them as they're navigating that feels really irresponsible to me because, they're just like, well, now I have all this stuff. What do I do with it?
Right. Now what? Right.
Well, now we're going to work on the things that you say you want.
Yes.
So,
how many of your clients are looking for different careers, but they don't know what they are?
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always been that way, but as I'm thinking of my current clients, they're almost all working towards, or they are just recently went out and created, I have a client who's an esthetician and she just went out on her own. So she has her own, she has her own brand, her own shop, everything. So she's on her own. But yeah, most of them, it's relationships and specifically romantic relationships and going out on their own, either finding a career that they love, might not be being an entrepreneur, but finding something that really fills them up and lights them up. And then entrepreneurship, of course, too.
Right. Yeah. I could see that. I feel like that's sort of, the older we get, that becomes more of the struggle because a lot of times, many of us as women, we enter a career and then fast forward and all of a sudden it's 15, 20 years later and you're still in that career and you're like, oh, wow, I don't even know that I like this stuff, but this is what I've been doing. So you just stay there. And I do think it's really empowering that there are so many women out there who do make major career shifts and have second careers and find a tremendous amount of success to learn from their stories and learn that it is possible. And life is really just too short to not make yourself a priority and to not have a passion for what you do. Like, what are you waiting for?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
What are you waiting for? So how does your son take to this concept that he has a mother and a stepfather who are coaches? Does it feel like to him, does it feel like they are constantly trying to make me better? or does it just sort of slowly seep into him through osmosis a little bit? Like, how does that work at 10? Because 10-year-old boys, I think, are kind of a little clueless and life is really simple at 10 and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that he entirely gets it, like what I do. He just knows that I'm on calls a lot. I would say one of the biggest challenges is, most kids, their parents are away at work. And so they don't have the visual of them working, whereas I'm working from home. So right now it's summertime, he's home and he sees me working. And so even though I might only be working 5 hours a day, to him, he sees that 5 hours a day and it feels like you're working all the time. I'm like, hey, buddy, I work half as much as other people do, But he has really let us implement things into our lives that will help him grow. We have a gratitude practice that we do together as a family every night. We say what we're proud of as a family together every night. He knows that if he says, oh, I'm so stupid, that he gets to say 7 great things about himself.
Whoa.
I really encourage him to ask for what he wants and needs. So to advocate for himself, because he's got such a big heart that he'll just do whatever he's like, well, I don't want to hurt so and so's feelings, or I don't want them to get mad at me. And, I'm like, buddy, just to say, I don't want to have a sleepover tonight is not going to hurt somebody's feelings. Like, you get to say what you want and say it kindly.
Right.
So I'm really proud of myself because I think I had a lot of odds stacked up against me bringing him into this world. But the work that I've done on myself, I've been able to do with him as well. And so I can and people tell me he's very mature for his age, which I guess I didn't realize it, but he really is. And gosh, I wish I would have had these tools at 10 years old. And I'm so grateful that I get to give them to him.
Yeah. It's such
sometimes I'm Jerry. Sometimes he's like, oh, I don't want to say 7 things about myself. Sometimes he gives me a little bit of grief, but for the most part, he's pretty all in with us.
But those are such good, simple practices. I think parenting is hard, like no matter what. And I love when I talk to guests that have very specific things that they do in their homes that talk about gratitude and talk about, looking within and ways that you deal with conflict and difficult situations and how you feel and learning how to communicate and express yourself at a very young age. Because I think that is such a gift we can give to our children that they can then carry that forward, and not most children actually don't have the benefit of that gift, to be quite honest.
No, not at all.
And they don't also have present parents either.
Right.
I think when you're in the field that we're in, and you're a little more in tune with yourself, and some of it might just be, the way we were raised and not wanting to repeat those patterns. So, really trying to make choices that make us more present with our kids. And we're not perfect with that. I spent years not being great at that at all, but making it more of a priority, I think, is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So what else is on the horizon for the business? What else do you want to do?
Oh my goodness. My super dreamy goal that I have is I really want to start hosting retreats. So I'm noodling on that one right now, what that's going to look like. But I know that's been on my heart too. So that's definitely one. And then also, I am launching my own podcast. So that's in the works for me right now. And it's called Rapid Rise. And it's going to be a quick 20 to 30 minute podcast. And so it's going to be for those moms who just have car loop, right? It's taking the kids to school, singing car loop, and then coming home or picking them up, or those quick Target errands, things like that. It's going to be something that's going to be quick and meaty and digestible that they can take with them with every episode. So I'm really excited to get that going too.
I love that. Congratulations. Yeah. That is really exciting. Yeah, and your husband is a podcaster also. We should make mention of, and that is how I know you, because I was fortunate to be a guest on his show, and he mentioned to me, he's like, "Oh, so my wife," and he told me what you did. And I was like, "I must meet her." I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I'm like, "I was her." Like, we have so much in common: being a single parent, having that executive career, getting a different calling. I mean, we have so much in common. And so I just said this to you. I was like, "I must meet your wife." Like, I don't mean to be stalking you, but I must meet your wife, because I think like minds attract like minds. And I think you'll be so great at a podcast, and the podcasting universe, I think, can open so many doors to so many people. And I think it's a gift to be able to be given a public platform to share our message in a broader way. So congratulations.
Absolutely. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. Sometimes there's just something that I'm so passionate about that I want to share. And it's like, what's the outlet, right? It's like social media. I want people to hear it, because I have this story and I have this passion, I have this drive and I have this excitement, and I want to give it away. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well,
there you go. And
let's go.
And it's more than a 1 minute reel. Right. And it's coming over your fear, right? There's fear in putting yourself out there. And it's like, what if people aren't interested in my message? What if they don't like what I have to say? Mm-hmm. What if nobody listens? And it's all of those things that we all face as we do something new as an entrepreneur. But I think, leading by example and just going and doing helps your clients see anything can be possible for them too.
Absolutely.
That's exciting. Do you want to write a book? Lots of people want to write a book. Do you want to write a book?
A book is not,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a book's not out there for me. It's really speaking, podcast, coaching.
I love that.
And, we could be talking 5 years from now and I might be writing a book. Who knows? But today it doesn't call me.
Right. Which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So how do you continually learn as a coach?
I would say there's a few ways. One, I surround myself with people who aren't just going to tell me what I want to hear. And I surround myself with powerful women who are up to big things, who also are making a difference in this world. And, we call each other our biz besties, and we meet every Monday night at 8:00, and we talk about our goals for the week and like where we're feeling stuck or where we have some challenges. And all three of us are coaches in some way or another, and we'll support each other in that. That's been a big blessing for me. I would say also is having my own coach.
Yeah.
My recommendation to anybody who is going to hire a coach is ask them, who's your coach?
Yeah.
Because I can only take my clients as far as I can go, right? So if I'm not growing, then I can only take them so far.
Correct.
And so it's like this constant opportunity to grow and also marry a coach.
You're living it every day. There you go. Every day. But you make such a good point. I don't know a single coach who doesn't have a coach. Every coach I know has a coach, and every successful business person that I know has hired multiple business coaches along the way for different stages of their businesses based on what they've needed at the time. In some ways, it's a willingness to ask for help. Yeah. And recognize that there's so much space for improvement and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with asking for help and for clarity, because some of the best ideas come from someone else repeating back to you what you say. You also said something that was so important that I don't want to pass up, which is accountability. So you having your business group that you meet with every Monday holds everyone accountable for what they're going to do. And that I think is so important. And I'm sure you do that in your coaching program, because by having a coach, it holds you accountable. And so you're holding yourself accountable. You're leading by example, holding yourself accountable by having your accountability buddies in your business group. And that is also a really important tactic too.
And it's got to be with somebody who's going to hold you accountable.
Right, yes.
And I think there's two things with that. Is one, you get to have a deep trust and connection with that person, because somebody's about to tell you about yourself. You need to know that it's coming from love.
Right.
Because I've had accountability partners before that I just hid from because I wasn't connected to them, because there wasn't a trust there. But it's like with these ladies, and I said to one of them, like, I know you're going to hold me accountable. And quite frankly, I'm a little scared of you.
But that's perfect. That's what you want, is someone who's going to push your buttons and challenge you and really make you think. That's how we grow.
Yeah. So I tell on myself too. Like I tell when I'm really like the one area of my life that, and I'll just be transparent, is that I struggle with is just my health. And I recently found out that there was a girl that I went to high school with that was just 2 years younger than me that passed away. And she left behind, her son, who was in his early 20s, her twin sister, their family, everybody. And it was a real reality check for me. I said, my greatest fear is that something will happen to me and my son will grow up without me. Right. That's like losing a mother is a pain that people don't come back from. And I never want that for him. And I thought, I must get healthier, and I get to do this for me, but also I get to do this for him. And so I'm like, okay, this really stopped me in my tracks and created this whole other deeply rooted why. And so in that moment when I just felt it so deeply, I picked up my phone and I texted my girls and I shared that with them. And I said, it's time. It's time for me to really get everything on track here. And so tonight at 8:00 Eastern, I'm going to be getting it and we're going to be talking about it.
Good for you. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. I love that. And nothing, I'm a huge proponent and advocate of personal health. And, you only have one body. And if we don't take care of that one body, and I'm like you, I mean, I was a single parent. My daughter's now 17, but I still, even to this day, I think, oh my goodness, if I would be devastated if something happened to me, and the thought that she would have to live without me. And especially when she was younger, that thought is paralyzing, to think that
It
that
is.
could be a child's life. And
Mhm.
if that has to be the motivation to try to take care of your body and make it so you can live longer, then I'll take it.
Whatever it takes, right? It doesn't have to be any specific thing. My schooling was in substance abuse, and so they would always talk about like any reason that somebody goes into treatment is a good reason. It doesn't matter if it's because their wife said to or whatever it is, right? It's the same thing with the goals or with making a massive change in your life. Whatever the reason is, that's the reason, and go with it.
Right.
Don't judge it. And sure as heck, don't let anybody else judge it, because they're not you.
Yeah, which I love. Oh my goodness. You are so inspiring, and I cannot thank you enough for being a guest on my show. And I know, I can feel in my heart that you will help so many women. So before we go, what is a book that you would like to recommend to the audience, either on personal wellness or career, or something that's impacted your life that you would recommend other people read?
So I would say there's two that are really sticking out to me. And one of them has really helped me, just not only in my life, but in as an entrepreneur. And that is You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero.
I love
And
that
I know that
book.
sounds
I'm
really,
like every,
isn't
oh my
it such
goodness.
a great book?
I have like every page turned down,
Yes.
highlighted notes. I mean,
Yes.
every single page is filled with
Yeah.
great. I love that book.
Yes. And it's such an easy read.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think I listened to it like 2 or 3 times on Audible. And then finally one day I just ordered it because I wanted to do the journal prompts
Yes.
that are in the exercises that are at the end of each chapter. And that book was really impactful, like I said, on a personal level and on a business front, because we have a lot of limiting beliefs around money that stem from our childhood, and like my husband and I'm clear we're the exception, but like we have our finances are joined, which probably is making most people cringe right now. But
Me included.
what resulted in that was we have very open and honest conversations about money and what it's represented in our lives and like what it was like as a child. And all of those things matter. And so I really love that book for that reason.
Yes.
Because money is one of the top reasons that married couples get divorced.
100%.
And so, for me, it's like that book and then joining your finances, because it forces you to talk about money.
Yeah.
So that one's really important to me. And then Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima, which is a relatively new book. Yeah, I think this just came out like a couple months ago. I think that worthiness is something we never stop focusing on, that we never stop nurturing.
Yeah.
Because it shows up in a lot of areas in our life for different reasons, and just when we think we've crossed that worthiness threshold, there's like another thing.
Right. Yeah.
And there's this line in the book that is so impactful, just not only again in personal life, but as an entrepreneur. And she says, in life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. You don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of. And when I read that book laying in bed one night, I just was crocodile tears, because I'm like, okay, it's like an extra motivation to like keep pouring into myself, because I have big things out there and I can't be stopped because I don't believe in myself.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I have to get that book, because I feel like worthiness there's just some deep seated shit from our childhood. Excuse my language about that. But, I really think one of the biggest barriers to success as an entrepreneur is not even consciously knowing that you are sabotaging because you don't feel that you're worthy.
My goodness.
It's like the underlying hidden. Yeah, it's a huge one. Oh, I can't wait to read that book, because I have not read that one. So thank you. Yeah. Oh, I love the recommendation.
It's a super easy read. It's like you could just read it sitting by the pool one day.
Love it. Okay, great. I'm going to absolutely grab that. So before we go, where can my guests find you?
Oh, they can find me at my website, JennJohnsonCoaching.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram, all Jenn Johnson Coaching.
Perfect. And when your podcast comes out, I'm sure it will be on Instagram and will also be on LinkedIn and on your website. So I will.
It sure will.
I will include all of this in the show notes. So Jen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see what happens with your career in the future. And we can definitely have you back after the podcast is live, because I'd love to share that with people once you're up and running. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's been so fun. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the House of JerMar podcast, where wellness starts within. We appreciate you being a part of our community and hope you felt inspired and motivated by our guest. If you enjoyed this episode, please write us a review and share it with friends. Building our reach on YouTube and Apple Podcasts will help us get closer to our mission to empower 1 million women to live all in. You can also follow us on Instagram at House of JerMar and sign up to be a part of our monthly inspiration newsletter through our website, houseofjermar.com. If you or someone you know would be a good guest on the show, please reach out to us at podcast@houseofjermar.com. This has been a House of JerMar production with your host, Jean Collins. Thank you for joining our house.